the Chargers get an important Week 1 win against a division rival. Let's get into how they secured the win and what it means for the rest of the season, and also why Quentin Johnston would make a way better left tackle than Storm Norton. Also, make sure to hit the notification bell if you want to see more weekly recaps. And if you're not a subscriber yet, and you're a Chargers fan, I would highly recommend subscribing to the channel. And I'm not just saying that because it's my channel. Before we analyze the offense and defense, let's just do a little recap. Looking at the score at the end of the game, 22-10, seems like the Chargers dominated the Raiders, but it wasn't quite the story. For a good chunk of the game, the Raiders were leading, not by much, but still. This wasn't the cakewalk that you might think, considering just how much more talented the Chargers are. I mean, if you just look at the quarterbacks, it's Herbert versus Minshew. But the Raiders managed to stick around because the Chargers offense couldn't really get anything going. Ultimately, any possible comeback was foiled by Antonio Pierce getting very conservative on 4th down. Even with the conservative call, I never got the feeling like the Chargers were really going to lose. It was kind of almost like they're just playing with their food. And I definitely get the sense that this sort of ugly win is going to be something that's going to become very much a feature, not a bug. And by that, I mean there's going to be a lot of games where they just basically do as much as they can to win without really putting themselves in position to lose, and just rely on the defense to make big plays and Herbert to come up when he's needed. In other words, I definitely should not have been as optimistic about Herbert as a fantasy player this year, and instead focus maybe on my overs on Chargers win totals. So now let's talk offense. Obviously, the Chargers offense didn't look great, but you gotta love what you saw from the running game. Sure, Gus Edwards only averaged 2.4 yards a carry, but J.K. Dobbins looked pretty good. And by pretty good, I mean 135 yards, a touchdown, and 13.5 yards a carry. I always really liked Dobbins as a prospect, but I definitely was not high on him coming into this year because of his litany of injuries. But he looked pretty explosive, at least from what I can tell. The Raiders defense, which is coached by Antonio Pierce, appears to be well coached, but they're not exactly the most talented. But still, I think eye test wise, he looked pretty good, and that's encouraging for the Chargers moving forward. However, moving forward, I doubt that this means he's going to be the bell cow. My guess, when someone takes a deeper look at the All-22, the big Dobbins game was probably aided a lot by a good game plan by Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh by extension. And with Roman especially, I think the hot hand thing is still going to be very much in play. Receiver-wise, it was the complete opposite of an awe-inspiring performance. Obviously, with Herbert only throwing for 144 yards, there wasn't a lot of yardage to go around. But ultimately, McConkey led the day with 39 yards and 5 receptions and a touchdown. I think his role is definitely something to monitor, especially considering how much they rely on him on shorter targets. I definitely don't see this game as a confirmation that the big season's coming for sure, but I'm encouraged. And I know Tony Romo was hating on Quentin Johnston, but I still was a little bit encouraged from his game. Yeah, sure, it didn't exactly come up big on a 3rd down play there, but I don't think it was that big of a deal. And I also thought he looked pretty good in the open field, which is encouraging. Even if it didn't happen that many times, Greg Roman still showed that he kind of knew how to use him a bit more. But where I was most encouraged when it came to Quentin Johnston wasn't his game. It's how he fucking stared down Maxx Crosby. I like seeing that fire from considering, he looked like he was going to wet his pants most of this rookie season. So this is really encouraging stuff. As for Josh Palmer, who got ejected, I'm not as encouraged by his fisticuffs, because he definitely looked like he was going to be the de facto blocking guy. And after talking shit about him in my Chargers fantasy video, I still somehow ended up with him in a draft. I probably should have listened to myself. As far as the tight ends go, it was a pretty ho-hum day. Hayden Hurst had 2 receptions for 33 yards, and Will Dissly chipped in a reception for 13. Hurst was missed a few times by Herbert, but really they didn't seem to be as big of a factor as I thought they would be, considering it's a Greg Roman offense. Quarterbacking-wise, it was an interesting day. The Chargers offense definitely looked pretty listless in the first quarter and basically the first half. They were largely led by Cameron Dicker, but frankly, Herbert didn't really have to do much, because why? The running game was doing well, and the Raiders weren't really putting up points, and they just played a steady game, pretty much mistake-free football. And I definitely think that every Chargers fan out there would prefer that Herbert wins ugly than lose staley. Offensive line-wise, I think it went pretty well for the Chargers today. Obviously, not having to throw the ball around, it's hard to really tell protection-wise how the unit will handle a better, higher-scoring team. But you have to feel pretty good about the day that Maxx Crosby had against rookie Joe Alt. Of course, I want to see more, but I'm definitely encouraged by what I saw. But frankly, also not surprised. This is a Greg Roman offense coached by Jim Harbaugh. This offensive line was going to be pretty good. All right, let's talk defense now. I almost don't have that much to say on this because it was just such a steady effort with how they handled the run and the pass. In fact, it was so steady that a defensive tackle got an interception. More impressively was the takeaways. They were able to collect 2 forced fumbles and an INT. It's going to be important for the defense to continue getting takeaways, because if this offense isn't going to be the most powerful, to give the offense more chances as well as take chances away from the other side. Also, it must have been really nice for all the Chargers fans out there to see a team that could actually handle short yardage situations on defense. Imagine that, a defense full of defenders who know what their keys are. The best looking player out there on defense, though, must have been Joey Bosa. Obviously, it really seemed like he wasn't going to be with the Chargers this year. And I think a lot of people just assumed that Keenan Allen would stay and he would go. But, I'm not going to include Keenan Allen's really bad drop today because that'd be really petty. But after seeing Joey Bosa's game today, I definitely think they're better off with him than Allen. Obviously, Khalil Mack also had a good day. Got off to a hot start with 1.5 sacks. I think the Chargers will definitely have a big year with those two coming off the quarterback. And I guess if you want to point to anything, that Alexander Madison touchdown wasn't great, but I don't know, you're really stretching it if you're really worried about that. Overall, Jesse Minter was definitely impressive, and all that preseason hype about him being a coaching candidate next year seems definitely more founded than it was last week. I guess I should talk special teams too, but really I'm going to just talk about Cameron Dicker, even though there's nothing really to say other than he's amazing. Long live Dicker. I think overall, this was, quite frankly, an ugly win, but like I said earlier, this is a good thing. And quite frankly, it was just nice to see a team that was in control of a game and never really let up. I'm feeling good about my 12-5 prediction, is all I'm saying. Almost as good as I'm feeling about liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thanks again for watching.